Chapter 6. I was away for 2 days at the post. When I got home it was too late, and I did not see Miss Barkley until the next evening. She was not in the garden, and I had to wait in the office of the hospital until she came down. There were many marble busts on painted wood pillars along the walls of the room they used for an office. The hall, too, that the office opened on, was lined with them. They had the complete marble quality of all looking alike. Sculpture had always seemed a dull business. Still, bronzes looked like something, but marble busts all looked like a cemetery. There was one fine cemetery, though, the one at Pisa. Genoa was the place to see the bad marbles. This had been the villa of a very wealthy German, and the busts must have cost him plenty. I wondered who had done them, and how much he got. I tried to make out whether they were members of the family or what, but they were all uniformly classical. You could not tell anything about them. I sat on a chair and held my cap. We were supposed to wear steel helmets even in Gorizia, but they were uncomfortable and too bloody theatrical in a town where the civilian inhabitants had not been evacuated. I wore one when we went up to the posts and carried an English gas mask. We were just beginning to get some of them. They were a real mask. Also, we were required to wear an automatic pistol, even doctors and sanitary officers. I felt it against the back of the chair. We were liable to arrest if we did not have one worn in plain sight. Rinaldi carried a holster stuffed with toilet paper. I wore a real one, and felt like a gunman until I practiced firing it. It was an Astra 7.65 caliber, with a short barrel, and it jumped so sharply when you let it off that there was no question of hitting anything. I practiced with it, holding below the target and trying to master the jerk of the ridiculous short barrel, till I could hit within a yard of where I aimed at 20 paces, and then the ridiculousness of carrying a pistol at all came over me, and I soon forgot it, and carried it flopping against the small of my back with no feeling at all except a vague sort of shame when I met English-speaking people. I sat now in the chair, and an orderly of some sort looked at me disapprovingly from behind a desk while I looked at the marble floor, the pillars with the marble busts, and the frescoes on the wall, and waited for Miss Barkley. The frescoes were not bad. Any frescoes were good when they started to peel and flake off. I saw Catherine Barkley come down the hall, and stood up. She did not seem tall walking toward me, but she looked very lovely. "Good evening, Mr. Henry," she said. "How do you do?" I said. The orderly was listening behind the desk. "Shall we sit here or go out in the garden?" "Let's go out. It's much cooler." I walked behind her out into the garden, the orderly looking after us. When we were out on the gravel drive, she said, "Where have you been?" "I've been out on post." "You couldn't have sent me a note?" "No," I said, "not very well. I thought I was coming back." "You ought to have let me know, darling." We were off the driveway, walking under the trees. I took her hands, then stopped and kissed her. "Isn't there anywhere we can go?" "No," she said, "we just have to walk here. You've been away a long time." "This is the 3rd day, but I'm back now." She looked at me. "And you do love me?" "Yes." "You did say you loved me, didn't you?" "Yes," I lied. "I love you." I'd not said it before. "And you call me Catherine?" "Catherine." We walked on a way, and were stopped under a tree. "Say, I've come back to Catherine in the night." "I've come back to Catherine in the night." "Oh, darling, you have come back, haven't you?" "Yes." "I love you so, and it's been awful. You won't go away." "No, I'll always come back." "Oh, I love you so. Please put your hand there again." "It's not been away." I turned her so I could see her face when I kissed her, and saw that her eyes were shut. I kissed both her shut eyes. I thought she probably was a little crazy. It was all right if she was. I did not care what I was getting into. This was better than going every evening to the house for officers, where the girls climbed all over you and put your cap on backwards as a sign of affection between their trips upstairs with brother officers. I knew I did not love Catherine Barkley, nor had any idea of loving her. This was a game, like bridge, in which you said things instead of playing cards. Like bridge, you had to pretend you were playing for money or playing for some stakes. Nobody had mentioned what the stakes were. It was all right with me. I wish there was some place we could go, I said. I was experiencing the masculine difficulty of making love very long, standing up. There isn't any place, she said. She came back from wherever she had been. We might sit there just for a little while. We sat on the flat stone bench, and I held Catherine Barkley's hand. She would not let me put my arm around her. "Are you very tired?" she asked. "No." She looked down at the grass. "This is a rotten game we play, isn't it?" "What game?" "Don't be dull." "I'm not, on purpose." "You're a nice boy," she said, "and you play it as well as you know how, but it's a rotten game." "Do you always know what people think?" "Not always, but I do with you. You don't have to pretend you love me. That's over for the evening. Is there anything you'd like to talk about?" "But I do love you." "Please, let's not lie when we don't have to. I had a very fine little show, and I'm all right now. You see, I'm not mad, and I'm not gone off. It's only a little, sometimes." I pressed her hand. "Dear Catherine." It sounds very funny now. Catherine. You don't pronounce it very much alike. But you're very nice. You're a very good boy. It's what the priest said. Yes, you're very good, and you will come and see me. Of course. And you don't have to say you love me. That's all over for a while. She stood up and put out her hand. "Good night." I wanted to kiss her. "No," she said, "I'm awfully tired." "Kiss me, though," I said. "I'm awfully tired, darling. Kiss me." "Do you want to, very much?" "Yes." We kissed, and she broke away suddenly. "No, good night, please, darling." We walked to the door, and I saw her go in and down the hall. I liked to watch her move. She went on down the hall. I went on home. It was a hot night, and there was a good deal going on up in the mountains. I watched the flashes on San Gabriele. I stopped in front of the Villa Rossa. The shutters were up, but it was still going on inside. Somebody was singing. I went on home. Rinaldi came in while I was undressing. "Aha," he said, "it does not go so well. Baby is puzzled. Where have you been? At the Villa Rossa. It was very edifying, baby. We all sang. Where have you been?" "Calling on the British." Thank God I did not become involved with the British. Chapter 7. I came back the next afternoon from our first mountain post, and stopped the car at the assistimento where the wounded and sick were sorted by their papers, and the papers marked for the different hospitals. I'd been driving, and I sat in the car, and the driver took the papers in. It was a hot day, and the sky was very bright and blue, and the road was white and dusty. I sat in the high seat of the Fiat and thought about nothing. A regiment went by in the road, and I watched them pass. The men were hot and sweating. Some wore their steel helmets, but most of them carried them slung from their packs. Most of the helmets were too big, and came down almost over the ears of the men who wore them. The officers all wore helmets, better-fitting helmets. It was half of the Brigata Basilicata. I identified them by their red and white striped collar marks. There were stragglers going by long after the regiment had passed, men who could not keep up with their platoons. They were sweaty, dusty, and tired. Some looked pretty bad. A soldier came along after the last of the stragglers. He was walking with a limp. He stopped and sat down beside the road. I got down and went over. "What's the matter?" He looked at me, then stood up. "I'm going on." "What's the trouble?" "The war." "What's wrong with your leg?" "It's not my leg. I got a rupture." "Why don't you ride with the transport?" I asked. "Why don't you go to the hospital?" "They won't let me. The lieutenant said I slipped the truss on purpose." "Let me feel it. It's way out. Which side is it on?" "Here." I felt it. "Cough," I said. "I'm afraid it will make it bigger. It's twice as big as it was this morning." "Sit down," I said. "As soon as I get the papers on these wounded, I'll take you along the road and drop you with your medical officers." "They'll say I did it on purpose." "They can't do anything," I said. "It's not a wound. You've had it before, haven't you?" But I lost the truss. They'll send you to a hospital. Can't I stay here, Tenente? No, I haven't any papers for you. The driver came out of the door with the papers for the wounded in the car. 4 for 105, 2 for 132, he said. They were hospitals beyond the river. You drive, I said. I helped the soldier with a rupture up on the seat with us. You speak English, he asked. Sure. How do you like this goddamn war? Rotten. I say it's rotten. Jesus Christ, I say it's rotten. Were you in the States? Sure, in Pittsburgh. I knew you was an American. Don't I talk Italian good enough? I knew you was an American, all right. Another American, said the driver in Italian, looking at the hernia man. Listen, Lieutenant, do you have to take me to that regiment? Yes, because the captain doctor knew I had this rupture. I threw away the goddamn truss so it would get bad and I wouldn't have to go to the line again. I see. Couldn't you take me no place else? If it was closer to the front, I could take you to a first medical post, but back here you've got to have papers. If I go back, they'll make me get operated on, and then they'll put me in the line all the time. I thought it over. You wouldn't want to go in the line all the time, would you? He asked. No. Jesus Christ, ain't this a goddamn war? Listen, I said, you get out and fall down by the road and get a bump on your head, and I'll pick you up on our way back and take you to a hospital. We'll stop by the road here, Aldo. We stopped at the side of the road. I helped him down. I'll be right here, Lieutenant, he said. So long, I said. We went on and passed the regiment about a mile ahead, then crossed the river, cloudy with snow water and running fast through the spiles of the bridge, to ride along the road across the plain and delivered the wounded at the 2 hospitals. I drove coming back and went fast with the empty car to find the man from Pittsburgh. First we passed the regiment, hotter and slower than ever, then the stragglers. Then we saw a horse ambulance stop by the road. 2 men were lifting the hernia man to put him in. They had come back for him. He shook his head at me. His helmet was off, and his forehead was bleeding below the hairline. His nose was skin, and there was dust on the bloody patch and dust in his hair. Look at that bump, Lieutenant, he shouted. Nothing to do. They come back for me. When I got back to the villa, it was 5 o'clock, and I went out where we washed the cars to take a shower. Then I made out my report in my room, sitting in my trousers and an undershirt in front of the open window. In 2 days the offensive was to start, and I would go with the cars to Plava. It was a long time since I had written to the States, and I knew I should write, but I had let it go so long that it was almost impossible to write now. There was nothing to write about. I sent a couple of Army Zona de Guerra postcards, crossing out everything except I am well. That should handle them. Those postcards would be very fine in America, strange and mysterious. This was a strange and mysterious war zone, but I suppose it was quite well run and grim compared to other wars with the Austrians. The Austrian army was created to give Napoleon victories, any Napoleon. I wished we had a Napoleon, but instead we had Il Generale Cortona, fat and prosperous, and Vittorio Emanuele, the tiny man with the long thin neck and the goat beard. Over on the right they had the Duke of Aosta. Maybe he was too good-looking to be a great general, but he looked like a man. Lots of them would have liked him to be king. He looked like a king. He was the king's uncle and commanded the 3rd Army. We were in the 2nd Army. There were some British batteries up with the 3rd Army. I had met 2 gunners from that lot in Milan. They were very nice, and we had a big evening. They were big and shy and embarrassed and very appreciative together of anything that happened. I wish that I was with the British. It would have been much simpler. Still, I would probably have been killed. Not in this ambulance business. Yes, even in the ambulance business, British ambulance drivers were killed sometimes. Well, I knew I would not be killed, not in this war. It did not have anything to do with me. It seemed no more dangerous to me myself than war in the movies. I wish to God it was over, though. Maybe it would finish this summer. Maybe the Austrians would crack. They had always cracked in other wars. What was the matter with this war? Everybody said the French were through. Rinaldi said that the French had mutinied, and troops marched on Paris. I asked him what happened, and he said, oh, they stopped them. I wanted to go to Austria without war. I wanted to go to the Black Forest. I wanted to go to the Harz Mountains. Where were the Harz Mountains, anyway? They were fighting in the Carpathians. I did not want to go there anyway. It might be good, though. I could go to Spain if there was no war. The sun was going down, and the day was cooling off. After supper I would go and see Catherine Barkley. I wish you were here now. I wished I were in Milan with her. I would like to eat at the Cova and then walk down the Via Manzoni in the hot evening and cross over and turn off along the canal and go to the hotel with Catherine Barkley. Maybe she would. Maybe she would pretend that I was her boy that was killed, and we would go in the front door, and the porter would take off his cap, and I would stop at the concierge desk and ask for the key, and she would stand by the elevator. And then we would get in the elevator, and it would go up very slowly, clicking at all the floors, and then our floor, and the boy would open the door and stand there, and she would step out, and I would step out, and we would walk down the hall, and I would put the key in the door and open it, and go in and then take down the telephone, and ask them to send a bottle of Capri Bianca in a silver bucket full of ice, and you would hear the ice against the pail coming down the corridor, and the boy would knock, and I would say, leave it outside the door, please, because we would not wear any clothes, because it was so hot, and the window open, and the swallows flying over the roofs of the houses. And when it was dark afterward, and we went to the window, very small bats hunting over the houses, and close down over the trees, and we would drink the Capri, and the door locked, and it hot, and only a sheet, and the whole night we would both love each other. All night in the hot night in Milan. That was how it ought to be. I would eat quickly and go and see Catherine Barkley. They talked too much at the mess, and I drank wine because tonight we were not all brothers, unless I drank a little and talked with a priest about Archbishop Ireland, who was, it seemed, a noble man, and with whose injustice, the injustices he had received and in which I participated as an American, and of which I had never heard, I feigned acquaintance. It would have been impolite not to have known something of them when I had listened to such a splendid explanation of their causes, which were, after all, it seemed, misunderstandings. I thought he had a fine name, and he came from Minnesota, which made a lovely name. Ireland of Minnesota, Ireland of Wisconsin, Ireland of Michigan. What made it pretty was that it sounded like island. No, that wasn't it. There was more to it than that. Yes, Father, that is true, Father. Perhaps, Father. No, Father. Well, maybe, yes, Father. You know more about it than I do, Father. The priest was good, but dull. The officers were not good, but dull. The king was good, but dull. The wine was bad, but not dull. It took the enamel off your teeth and left it on the roof of your mouth. And the priest was locked up, Rocca said, because they found the 3% bonds on his person. It was in France, of course. Here they would never have arrested him. He denied all knowledge of the 5% bonds. This took place at Béziers. I was there and reading of it in the paper, went to the jail and asked to see the priest. It was quite evident he had stolen the bonds. I don't believe a word of this, Rinaldi said. Just as you like, Rocca said, but I am telling it for our priest here. It is very informative. He is a priest. He will appreciate it. The priest smiled. Go on, he said. I am listening. Of course, some of the bonds were not accounted for, but the priest had all of the 3% bonds and several local obligations. I forget exactly what they were. So I went to the jail. Now this is the point of the story. And I stood outside his cell, and I said as though I were going to confession, Bless me, Father, for you have sinned. There was great laughter from everybody. And what did he say? Asked the priest. Rocca ignored this and went on to explain the joke to me. You see the point, don't you? It seemed it was a very funny joke if you understood it properly. They poured me more wine, and I told the story about the English private soldier who was placed under the shower bath. Then the major told the story of the 11 Czechoslovaks and the Hungarian corporal. After some more wine, I told the story of the jockey who had found the penny. The Major said there was an Italian story, something like that, about the Duchess who could not sleep at night. At this point the priest left, and I told the story about the traveling salesman who arrived at 5 o'clock in the morning at Marseilles when the Mistral was blowing. The Major said he had heard a report that I could drink. I denied this. He said it was true, and by the corpse of Bacchus we would test whether it was true or not. Not Bacchus, I said. Not Bacchus. Yes, Bacchus, he said. I should drink cup for cup and glass for glass with Bassi, Filippo Vincenza. Bassi said no, that was no test because he had already drunk twice as much as I. I said that was a foul lie, and Bacchus or no Bacchus, Filippo Vincenza Bassi, or Bassi Filippo Vincenza, had never touched a drop all evening. And what was his name anyway? He said, was my name Federico Enrico or Enrico Federico? I said, let the best man win. Bacchus barred, and the Major started us with red wine and mugs. Halfway through the wine I did not want any more. I remembered where I was going. Bassi wins, I said. He's a better man than I am. I have to go. He does really, said Rinaldi. He has a rendezvous. I know all about it. I have to go. Another night, said Bassi. Another night when you feel stronger. He slapped me on the shoulder. There were lighted candles on the table. All the officers were very happy. Good night, gentlemen, I said. Rinaldi went out with me. We stood outside the door on the patch, and he said, You'd better not go up there drunk. I'm not drunk, Rinrin. Really. You better chew some coffee. Nonsense. I'll get some, baby. You walk up and down. He came back with a handful of roasted coffee beans. Chew those, baby, and God be with you. Bacchus, I said. I'll walk down with you. I'm perfectly all right. We walked along together through the town, and I chewed the coffee. At the gate of the driveway that led up to the British villa, Rinaldi said, Good night. Good night, I said. Why don't you come in? He shook his head. No, he said, I like the simpler pleasures. Thank you for the coffee beans. Nothing, baby, nothing. I started down the driveway. The outlines of the cypresses that lined it were sharp and clear. I looked back and saw Rinaldi standing watching me, and waved to him. I sat in the reception hall of the villa, waiting for Catherine Barkley to come down. Someone was coming down the hallway. I stood up, but it was not Catherine. It was Miss Ferguson. Hello, she said. Catherine asked me to tell you she was sorry she couldn't see you this evening. I'm so sorry. I hope she is not ill. She's not awfully well. Will you tell her how sorry I am? Yes, I will. Do you think it would be any good to try and see her tomorrow? Yes, I do. Thank you very much, I said. Good night. I went out the door, and suddenly I felt lonely and empty. I had treated seeing Catherine very lightly. I had gotten somewhat drunk and had nearly forgotten to come, but when I could not see her there, I was feeling lonely and hollow. Chapter 8. The next afternoon we heard there was to be an attack up the river that night, and that we were to take 4 cars there. Nobody knew anything about it, although they all spoke with great positiveness and strategical knowledge. I was riding in the first car, and as we passed the entry to the British hospital, I told the driver to stop. The other cars pulled up. I got out and told the driver to go on, and that if we had not caught up to them at the junction of the road to Gormons, to wait there. I hurried up the driveway, and inside the reception hall I asked for Miss Barkley. She is on duty. Could I see her just for a moment? They sent an orderly to see, and she came back with him. I stopped to see if you were better. They told me you were on duty, so I asked to see you. I'm quite well, she said. I think the heat knocked me over yesterday. I have to go. I'll just step out the door a minute. And you all right? I asked outside. Yes, darling. Are you coming tonight? No, I'm leaving now for a show up above Plava. A show? I don't think it's anything. And you'll be back tomorrow. She was unclasping something from her neck. She put it in my hand. It's a St. Anthony, she said, and come tomorrow night. You're not Catholic, are you? No, but they say a St. Anthony's very useful. I'll take care of him for you. Goodbye." "No," she said, "not goodbye." "All right. Be a good boy and be careful. No, you can't kiss me here. You can't." "All right." I looked back and saw her standing on the steps. She waved, and I kissed my hand and held it out. She waved again, and then I was out of the driveway and climbing up into the seat of the ambulance, and we started. The St. Anthony was in a little white metal capsule. I opened the capsule and spilled him out into my hand. "St. Anthony?" asked the driver. "Yes. I have one." His right hand left the wheel and opened a button on his tunic and pulled it out from under his shirt. "See?" I put my St. Anthony back in the capsule, spilled the thin gold chain together, and put it all in my breast pocket. "You don't wear him?" "No. It's better to wear him. That's what it's for." "All right," I said. I undid the clasp of the gold chain and put it around my neck and clasped it. The saint hung down on the outside of my uniform, and I undid the throat of my tunic, unbuttoned the shirt collar, and dropped him in under the shirt. I felt him in his metal box against my chest while we drove. Then I forgot about him. After I was wounded, I never found him. Someone probably got it at one of the dressing stations. We drove fast when we were over the bridge, and soon we saw the dust of the other cars ahead down the road. The road curved, and we saw the 3 cars looking quite small, the dust rising from the wheels and going off through the trees. We caught them and passed them and turned off on a road that climbed up into the hills. Driving in convoy is not unpleasant if you are the first car, and I settled back in the seat and watched the country. We were in the foothills on the near side of the river, and as the road mounted, there were the high mountains off to the north, with snow still on the tops. I looked back and saw the 3 cars all climbing, spaced by the interval of their dust. We passed a long column of loaded mules, the drivers walking along beside the mules wearing red fezzes. They were bersaglieri. Beyond the mule train the road was empty, and we climbed through the hills, and then went down over the shoulder of a long hill into a river valley. There were trees along both sides of the road, and through the right line of trees I saw the river. The water clear, fast and shallow. The river was low, and there were stretches of sand and pebbles with a narrow channel of water, and sometimes the water spread like a sheen over the pebbly bed. Close to the bank I saw deep pools, the water blue like the sky. I saw arched stone bridges over the river where tracks turned off from the road, and we passed stone farmhouses with pear trees candelabred against their south walls, and low stone walls in the fields. The road went up the valley a long way, and then we turned off and commenced to climb into the hills again. The road climbed steeply, going up and back and forth through chestnut woods to level finally along a ridge. I could look down through the woods and see, far below, with the sun on it, the line of the river that separated the 2 armies. We went along the rough new military road that followed the crest of the ridge, and I looked to the north at the 2 ranges of mountains, green and dark to the snow line, and then white and lovely in the sun. Then, as the road mounted along the ridge, I saw a 3rd range of mountains, higher snow mountains, that looked chalky white and furrowed, with strange plains, and then there were mountains far off beyond all these that you could hardly tell if you really saw. Those were all the Austrians' mountains, and we had nothing like them. Ahead there was a rounded turn-off in the road to the right, and looking down I could see the road dropping through the trees. There were troops on this road, and motor trucks and mules with mountain guns, and as we went down, keeping to the side, I could see the river far down below, the line of ties and rails running along it. The old bridge where the railway crossed to the other side and across, under a hill beyond the river, the broken houses of the little town that was to be taken. It was nearly dark when we came down and turned onto the main road that ran beside the river. Chapter 9. The road was crowded, and there were screens of cornstalk and straw matting on both sides and matting over the top, so that it was like the entrance at a circus or a native village. We drove slowly in this matting-covered tunnel and came out onto a bare, cleared space where the railroad station had been. The road here was below the level of the river bank, and all along the side of the sunken road there were holes dug in the bank with infantry in them. The sun was going down, and looking up along the bank as we drove, I saw the Austrian observation balloons above the hills on the other side, dark against the sunset. We parked the cars beyond a brickyard. The ovens in some deep holes had been equipped as dressing stations. There were 3 doctors that I knew. I talked with the major and learned that when it should start and our cars should be loaded, we would drive them back along the screened road and up to the main road along the ridge, where there would be a post and other cars to clear them. He hoped the road would not jam. It was a one-road show. The road was screened because it was inside of the Austrians across the river. Here at the brickyard we were sheltered from rifle or machine gun fire by the river bank. There was one smashed bridge across the river. They were going to put over another bridge when the bombardment started, and some troops were to cross at the shallows up above at the bend of the river. The major was a little man with upturned mustaches. He had been in the war in Libya and wore 2 wound stripes. He said that if the thing went well he would see that I was decorated. I said I hoped it would go well, but that he was too kind. I asked him if there was a big dugout where the drivers could stay, and he sent a soldier to show me. I went with him and found the dugout, which was very good. The drivers were pleased with it, and I left them there. The major asked me to have a drink with him, and 2 other officers. We drank rum, and it was very friendly. Outside it was getting dark. I asked what time the attack was to be, and they said as soon as it was dark. I went back to the drivers. They were sitting in the dugout talking, and when I came in they stopped. I gave them each a package of cigarettes, Macedonias, loosely packed cigarettes that spilled tobacco and needed to have the ends twisted before you smoke them. Manera lit his lighter and passed it around. The lighter was shaped like a Fiat radiator. I told them what I had heard. "Why didn't we see the post when we came down?" Passini asked. "It was just beyond where we turned off." "That road will be a dirty mess," Manera said. "They'll shell the blank out of us." "Probably. What about eating, Lieutenant? We won't get a chance to eat after this thing starts." "I'll go and see now," I said. "You want us to stay here, or can we look around?" "Better stay here." I went back to the major's dugout, and he said the field kitchen would be along, and the drivers could come and get their stew. He would loan them mess tins if they did not have them. I said I thought they had them. I went back and told the drivers I would get them as soon as the food came. Manera said that he hoped it would come before the bombardment started. They were silent until I went out. They were all mechanics and hated the war. I went out to look at the cars and see what was going on, and then came back and sat down in the dugout with the 4 drivers. We sat on the ground with our backs against the wall and smoked. Outside it was nearly dark. The earth of the dugout was warm and dry, and I let my shoulders back against the wall, sitting on the small of my back, and relaxed. "Who goes to the attack?" asked Gavuzzi. "Bersaglieri." "All Bersaglieri?" "I think so. There aren't enough troops here for a real attack." "It is probably to draw attention from where the real attack will be." "Do the men know that, who attack?" "I don't think so." "Of course they don't," Manera said. "They wouldn't attack if they did." "Yes, they would," Passini said. "Bersaglieri are fools." "They are brave and have good discipline," I said. "They are big through the chest by measurement, and healthy, but they are still fools." "The granatieri are tall," Manera said. This was a joke. They all laughed. "Were you there, Tenente, when they wouldn't attack and they shot every 10th man?" "No." "It is true. They lined them up afterward and took every 10th man. Carabinieri shot them." "Carabinieri," said Passini, and spat on the floor. "But those grenadiers, all over 6 feet, they wouldn't attack." "If everybody would not attack, the war would be over," Manera said. "It wasn't that way with the granatieri. They were afraid. The officers all came from such good families. Some of the officers went alone. The sergeant shot 2 officers who would not get out. Some troops went out. Those that went out were not lined up when they took the 10th men." "One of those shot by the Carabinieri is from my town," Passini said. He was a big, smart, tall boy to be in the granatieri, always in Rome, always with the girls, always with the carabinieri. He laughed. Now they have a guard outside his house with a bayonet, and nobody can come to see his mother and father and sisters, and his father loses his civil rights and cannot even vote. They are all without law to protect them. Anybody can take their property. If it wasn't that happens to their families, nobody would go to the attack. Yes, Alpini would. Those VE soldiers would. Some bersaglieri have run too. Now they try to forget it. You should not let us talk this way, Tenente. Evviva l'assertio, Passini said sarcastically. I know how you talk, I said, but as long as you drive the cars and behave, and don't talk so other officers can hear, Manera finished. I believe we should get the war over, I said. It would not finish it if one side stopped fighting. It would only be worse if we stopped fighting. It could not be worse, Passini said respectfully. There is nothing worse than war. Defeat is worse. I do not believe it, Passini said, still respectfully. What is defeat? You go home. They come after you. They take your home. They take your sisters. I don't believe it, Passini said. They can't do that to everybody. Let everybody defend his home. Let them keep their sisters in the house. They hang you. They come and make you a soldier again, not in the auto ambulance, in the infantry. They can't hang everyone. An outside nation can't make you be a soldier, Manera said. At the first battle you all run, like the Checos. I think you do not know anything about being conquered, and so you think it is not bad. Tenente, Passini said, we understand you let us talk. Listen, there is nothing as bad as war. We in the auto ambulance cannot even realize at all how bad it is. When people realize how bad it is, they cannot do anything to stop it because they go crazy. There are some people who never realize. There are people who are afraid of their officers. It is with them that war is made. I know it is bad, but we must finish it. It doesn't finish. There is no finish to a war. Yes, there is. Passini shook his head. War is not won by victory. What if we take San Gabriele? What if we take the Carso and Malfocone and Triste? Where are we then? Did you see all the far mountains today? Do you think we could take all them too? Only if the Austrians stop fighting. One side must stop fighting. Why don't we stop fighting? If they come down into Italy, they will get tired and go away. They have their own country. But no, instead there is a war. You're an orator. We think, we read. We are not peasants. We are mechanics. But even the peasants know better than to believe in a war. Everybody hates this war. There is a class that controls a country that is stupid and does not realize anything, and never can. That is why we have this war. Also, they make money out of it. Most of them don't, said Passini. They are too stupid. They do it for nothing, for stupidity. We must shut up, said Manera. We talk too much, even for the Tenente. He likes it, says Passini. We will convert him. But now we will shut up, Manera said. Do we eat yet, Tenente? Gavuzzi asked. I will go and see, I said. Gordini stood up and went outside with me. Is there anything I can do, Tenente? Can I help in any way? He was the quietest one of the four. Come with me if you want, I said, and we'll see. It was dark outside, and the long light from the searchlights was moving over the mountains. There were big searchlights on that front, mounted on camiones that you pass sometimes on the roads at night, close behind the lines. The camion stopped a little off the road, an officer directing the light, and the crew scared. We crossed the brickyard and stopped at the main dressing station. There was a little shelter of green branches outside over the entrance, and in the dark the night wind rustled the leaves, dried by the sun. Inside there was a light. The major was at the telephone, sitting on a box. One of the medical captains said the attack had been put forward an hour. He offered me a glass of cognac. I looked at the board tables, the instruments shining in the light, the basins and the stoppered bottles. Gordini stood behind me. The major got up from the telephone. It starts now, he said. It has been put back again. I looked outside. It was dark, and the Austrian searchlights were moving on the mountains behind us. It was quiet for a moment still. Then from all the guns behind us the bombardment started. "Savoia," said the Major. "About the soup, Major," I said. He did not hear me. I repeated it. "It hasn't come up." A big shell came in and burst outside in the brickyard. Another burst, and in the noise you could hear the smaller noise of the brick and dirt raining down. "What is there to eat?" "We have a little pasta asciutta," the Major said. "I'll take what you can give me." The Major spoke to an orderly, who went out of sight in the back and came back with a metal basin of cold cooked macaroni. I handed it to Gordini. "Have you any cheese?" The Major spoke grudgingly to the orderly, who ducked back into the hole again, and came out with a quarter of a white cheese. "Thank you very much," I said. "You'd better not go out." Outside something was set down beside the entrance. One of the two men who had carried it looked in. "Bring him in," said the Major. "What's the matter with you? Do you want us to come outside and get him?" The two stretcher-bearers picked up the man under the arms and by the legs and brought him in. "Slit the tunic," the Major said. He held a forceps with some gauze in the end. The two captains took off their coats. "Get out of here," the Major said to the two stretcher-bearers. "Come on," I said to Gordini. "You'd better wait until the shelling is over," the Major said over his shoulder. "They want to eat," I said. "As you wish." Outside we ran across the brickyard. A shell burst short near the river bank. Then there was another that we did not hear coming until the sudden rush. We both went flat, and with the flash and bump of the burst and the smell, heard the singing off of the fragments and the rattle of falling brick. Gordini got up and ran for the dugout. I was after him, holding the cheese, its smooth surface covered with brick dust. Inside the dugout were the three drivers sitting against the wall, smoking. "Here, you patriots," I said. "How are the cars?" Manera asked. "All right." "Did they scare you, Tenente?" "You're damned right," I said. I took out my knife, opened it, wiped off the blade, and pared off the dirty outside surface of the cheese. Gavuzzi handed me the basin of macaroni. "Start in to eat, Tenente." "No," I said, "put it on the floor, we'll all eat. There are no forks." "What the hell?" I said in English. I cut the cheese into pieces and laid them on the macaroni. "Sit down to it," I said. They sat down and waited. I put thumb and fingers into the macaroni and lifted. A mass loosened. "Lift it high, Tenente." I lifted it to arm's length, and the strands cleared. I lowered it into the mouth, sucked and snapped in the ends and chewed, then took a bite of cheese, chewed, and then a drink of the wine. It tasted of rusty metal. I handed the canteen back to Passini. "It's rotten," he said. "It's been in there too long. I had it in the car." They were all eating, holding their chins close over the basin, tipping their heads back, sucking in the ends. I took another mouthful, and some cheese, and a rinse of wine. Something landed outside that shook the earth. 420, or Minenwerfer, Gavuzzi said. "There aren't any 420s in the mountains," I said. "They have big Skoda guns. I've seen the holes. 305s. We went on eating. There was a cough, a noise like a railway engine starting, and then an explosion that shook the earth again. "This isn't a deep dugout," Passini said. "That was a big trench mortar." "Yes, sir." I ate the end of my piece of cheese and took a swallow of wine. Through the other noise I heard a cough, then came the chut, 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 chut. Then there was a flash, as when a blast furnace door is swung open, and a roar that started white and went red, and on in a rushing wind. I tried to breathe, but my breath would not come, and I felt myself rush bodily out of myself, and out and out and out, and all the time bodily in the wind. I went out swiftly, all of myself, and I knew I was dead, and that it had all been a mistake to think you just died. Then I floated, and instead of going on I felt myself slide back. I breathed, and I was back. The ground was torn up, and in front of my head there was a splinter beam of wood. In the jolt of my head I heard somebody crying. I thought somebody was screaming. I tried to move, but I could not move. I heard the machine guns and rifles firing across the river and all along the river. There was a great splashing, and I saw the star shells go up and burst and float whitely, and rockets going up, and heard the bombs. All this in a moment, and then I heard close to me someone saying, "Mamma mia, oh mamma mia." I pulled and twisted and got my legs loose finally and turned around and touched him. It was Passini, and when I touched him he screamed. His legs were toward me, and I saw in the dark and the light that they were both smashed above the knee. One leg was gone, and the other was held by tendons in part of the trouser, and the stump twitched and jerked as though it were not connected. He bit his arm and moaned, "Oh, mamma mia, mamma mia, then Dio te salve, Maria. Dio te salve, Maria. Oh, Jesus, shoot me, Christ, shoot me, mamma mia, mamma, oh, purest, lovely Mary, shoot me. Stop it, stop it, stop it, oh, Jesus, lovely Mary, stop it, oh, 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 oh," then choking, "Mamma mia, mamma, mamma mia." Then he was quiet, biting his arm, the stump of his leg twitching. "Porta ferite," I shouted, holding my hands cupped. "Porta ferite." I tried to get closer to Passini, to try to put a tourniquet on the legs, but I could not move. I tried again, and my legs moved a little. I could pull backward along with my arms and elbows. Passini was quiet now. I sat beside him, undid my tunic, and tried to rip the tail of my shirt. It would not rip, and I bit the edge of the cloth to start it. Then I thought of his puttees. I had on wool stockings, but Passini wore puttees. All the drivers wore puttees, but Passini had only one leg. I unwound the puttee, and while I was doing it, I saw there was no need to try and make a tourniquet, because he was dead already. I made sure he was dead. There were 3 others to locate. I sat up straight, and as I did so, something inside my head moved like the weights on a doll's eye, and it hit me inside the back of my eyeballs. My legs felt warm and wet, and my shoes were wet and warm inside. I knew that I was hit, and leaned over and put my hand on my knee. My knee wasn't there. My hand went in, and my knee was down on my shin. I wiped my hand on my shirt, and another floating light came very slowly down, and I looked at my leg, and was very afraid. "Oh, God," I said, "get me out of here." I knew, however, that there had been 3 others. There were 4 drivers. Passini was dead. That left 3. Someone took hold of me under the arms, and somebody else lifted my legs. "There are 3 others," I said. "One is dead." "It's Manera. We went for a stretcher, but there wasn't any. How are you, Tenente?" "Where's Gordini and Gavuzzi?" "Gordini is at the post getting bandaged. Gavuzzi has your legs. Hold on to my neck, Tenente. Are you badly hit?" "In the leg." "How is Gordini?" "He's all right. It was a big trench mortar shell." "Passini's dead." "Yes, he's dead." A shell fell close, and they both dropped to the ground and dropped me. "I'm sorry, Tenente," said Manera. "Hang on to my neck. If you drop me again, it was because we were scared. Are you unwounded?" "We are both wounded, a little." "Can Gordini drive?" "I don't think so." They dropped me once more before we reached the post. "You sons of bitches," I said. "I'm sorry, Tenente," Manera said. "We won't drop you again." Outside the post, a great many of us lay on the ground in the dark. They carried wounded in and brought them out. I could see the light come out from the dressing station when the curtain opened, and they brought someone in or out. The dead were off to one side. The doctors were working with their sleeves up to their shoulders, and were red as butchers. There were not enough stretchers. Some of the wounded were noisy, but most were quiet. The wind blew the leaves in the bower over the door of the dressing station, and the night was getting cold. Stretcher-bearers came in all the time, put their stretchers down, unloaded them, and went away. As soon as I got to the dressing station, Manera brought a medical sergeant out, and he put bandages on both my legs. He said there was so much dirt blown into the wound that there had not been much hemorrhage. They would take me as soon as possible. He went back inside. Gordini could not drive, Manera said. His shoulder was smashed, and his head was hurt. He had not felt bad, but now the shoulder had stiffened. He was sitting up beside one of the brick walls. Manera and Gavuzzi each went off with a load of wounded. They could drive all right. The British had come with 3 ambulances, and they had 2 men on each ambulance. One of their drivers came over to me, brought by Gordini, who looked very white and sick. The Britisher leaned over. "Are you hit badly?" he asked. He was a tall man and wore steel-rimmed spectacles. "In the legs." It's not serious, I hope. Will you have a cigarette? Thanks. They tell me you've lost 2 drivers. Yes, one killed and the fellow that brought you. What rotten luck. Would you like us to take the cars? That's what I wanted to ask you. We'd take quite good care of them and return them to the villa. 206, aren't you? Yes. It's a charming place. I've seen you about. They tell me you're an American. Yes. I'm English. No. Yes, English. Did you think I was Italian? There were some Italians with each of our units. It would be fine if you would take the cars, I said. We'll be most careful of them. He straightened up. This chap of yours was very anxious for me to see you. He patted Gordini on the shoulder. Gordini winced and smiled. The Englishman broke into voluble and perfect Italian. Now everything is arranged. I've seen your tenente. We will take over the 2 cars. You won't worry now. He broke off. I must do something about getting you out of here. I'll see the medical wallahs. We'll take you back with us. He walked across to the dressing station, stepped carefully among the wounded. I saw the blanket open. The light came out, and he went in. He will look after you, Tenente, Gordini said. How are you, Franco? I am all right. He sat down beside me. In a moment, the blanket in front of the dressing station opened, and 2 stretcher-bearers came out, followed by the tall Englishman. He brought them over to me. Here is the American, Tenente, he said in Italian. I'd rather wait, I said. There are much worse wounded than me. I'm all right. Come, he said. Don't be a bloody hero. Then, in Italian, lift him very carefully about the legs. His legs are very painful. He is the legitimate son of President Wilson. They picked me up and took me into the dressing room. Inside they were operating on all the tables. The little major looked at us, furious. He recognized me and waved a forceps. Ça va bien? Ça va. I brought him in, the tall Englishman said, in Italian. The only son of the American ambassador. He can be here until you are ready to take him. Then I will take him with my first load. He bent over me. I'll look up their adjutant to do your papers, and it will all go much faster. He stooped to go under the doorway and went out. The major was unhooking the forceps now, dropping them in a basin. I followed his hands with my eyes. Now he was bandaging. Then the stretcher-bearers took the man off the table. I'll take the American tenente, one of the captains said. They lifted me onto the table. It was hard and slippery. There were many strong smells, chemical smells, and the sweet smell of blood. They took off my trousers, and the medical captain commenced dictating to the sergeant adjutant while they worked. Multiple superficial wounds of the left and right thigh, and left and right knee and right foot. Profound wounds of right knee and foot. Lacerations of the scalp. He probed. Does that hurt? Christ, yes! With possible fracture of the skull. Incurred in the line of duty. That's what keeps you from being court-martialed for self-inflicted wounds, he said. Would you like a drink of brandy? How did you run into this thing, anyway? What were you trying to do? Commit suicide? Anti-tetanus, please. And mark a cross on both legs. Thank you. I'll clean this up a little, wash it out, and put on a dressing. Your blood coagulates beautifully. The adjutant, looking up from the paper. What inflicted the wounds? The medical captain. What hit you? Me, with the eyes shut. A trench mortar shell. The captain, doing things that hurt sharply and severing tissue. Are you sure? Me, trying to lie still and feeling my stomach flutter when the flesh was cut. I think so. Captain Doctor, interested in something he was finding. Fragments of enemy trench mortar shell. Now I'll probe for some of this if you like, but it's not necessary. I'll paint all this, and does that sting? Good. That's nothing to how it will feel later. The pain hasn't started yet. Bring him a glass of brandy. The shock dulls the pain, but this is all right. You have nothing to worry about if it doesn't infect, and it rarely does now. How is your head? Good Christ, I said. Better not drink too much brandy, then. If you've got a fracture, you don't want inflammation. How does that feel? Sweat ran all over me. Good Christ, I said. I guess you've got a fracture, all right. I'll wrap you up and don't bounce your head around. He bandaged, his hands moving very fast, and the bandage coming taut and sure. All right. Good luck, and vive la France. He is American, one of the other captains said. I thought you said he was a Frenchman. He talks French, the captain said. I've known him before. I always thought he was French. He drank a half-tumbler of cognac. "Bring on something serious. Get some more of the anti-tetanus." The captain waved to me. They lifted me, and the blanket flap went across my face as we went out. Outside, the sergeant adjutant knelt down beside me where I lay. "Name?" he asked, softly. "Middle name? First name? Rank? Where born? What class? What corps?" and so on. "I'm sorry for your head, Tenente. I hope you feel better. I'm sending you now with the English ambulance." "I'm all right," I said. "Thank you very much." The pain that the major had spoken about had started, and all that was happening was without interest or relation. After a while, the English ambulance came up, and they put me onto a stretcher and lifted the stretcher up to the ambulance level and shoved it in. There was another stretcher by the side with a man on it whose nose I could see, waxy looking, out of the bandages. He breathed very heavily. There were stretchers lifted and slid into the slings above. The tall English driver came around and looked in. "I'll take it very easily," he said. "I hope you'll be comfy." I felt the engine start, felt him climb up into the front seat, felt the brake come off and the clutch go in. Then we started. I lay still and let the pain ride. As the ambulance climbed along the road, it was slow in the traffic. Sometimes it stopped, sometimes it backed on a turn, then finally it climbed quite fast. I felt something dripping. At first it dropped slowly and regularly, then it pattered into a stream. I shouted to the driver. He stopped the car and looked in through the hole behind his seat. "What is it?" "The man on the stretcher over me has a hemorrhage." "We're not far from the top. I wouldn't be able to get the stretcher out alone." He started the car. The stream kept on. In the dark I could not see where it came from, with the canvas overhead. I tried to move sideways so that it did not fall on me. Where it had run down under my shirt, it was warm and sticky. I was cold and my leg hurt so that it made me sick. After a while the stream from the stretcher above lessened and started to drip again, and I heard and felt the canvas above move as the man on the stretcher settled more comfortably. "How is he?" the Englishman called back. "We're almost up." "He's dead, I think," I said. The drops fell very slowly, as they fall from an icicle after the sun has gone. It was cold in the car in the night as the road climbed. At the post on the top, they took the stretcher out and put another in, and we went on.